Let's hear from Mehr Husain, the news editor of the Friday Times, a sustainable practices advocate and entrepreneur. Mehr founded the ZUKA Accessories, ZUKA Books, and ZUKAST, and her efforts garnered nominations for the UN Women Asia Pacific Award in 2021 and the Prix Voltaire Award in 2023. Mehr, over to you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Sapan, for this extremely important and relevant session on human trafficking, focusing on sex trafficking of women and children. I'm grateful to Khabar Mumtaz Saiba and Beena Sarra Saiba for inviting me. I'm delighted and honored to be here. I'm going to start with a quote. All forms of forced labor and traffic in human beings are prohibited. This is what it says in the Constitution of Pakistan in Part 2, the section that delineates fundamental rights and principles of policy. Now, the question is, when was the last time this principle was honored in Pakistan? In 2007, I started working on a report on human trafficking. And the then Director General of the Federal Investigation Agency had to say that under the FIA, there is something called PACTO, which stands for Prevention and Control of Human Trafficking Ordinance 2002. This is within the FIA purview. Internal trafficking is within the purview of local police. He then went on to say, I cannot do anything if you tell me a girl has been abducted from a particular place and taken somewhere for prostitution. I cannot do anything, and it is the local police who deal with it. And therein, we see the problem between the difference between international law when it comes to sex trafficking and Pakistan law. Now, before I get into the legislation, I'm just going to sort of set up how human trafficking is conducted in Pakistan and what the differences between human smuggling, human trafficking, and why sex trafficking is such a problem. Both trafficking and smuggling are processes that make illegal money through exploitation. Human trafficking starts with human smuggling. In Pakistan, this takes place over the Pak-Iran border, in which the people who are being smuggled, I'm going to focus on smuggling initially, are split into two groups. These two groups have different routes. The first one is through Tehran, Turkey, and then Greece. The second one is from Tehran, Chabahar, and then to the Middle East, Muscat or the UAE. 13.3 million adults and children are victims of professional sex slavery that stems from the human smuggling. This makes Pakistan a source, transit, and destination country for men, women, and children who are then trafficked for two purposes. One is forced labor, the second one is sexual exploitation. In 2007, three trafficking agents based in Gujarat were identified. Three trafficking agents were identified from three different locations in Pakistan. One was a Malik Faisal from Rawalpindi. Second was a Javed Iqbal from Gujarat. The third was Malik Sher from Chaklala. Now, what is the issue in Pakistan? And what makes Pakistan the hotspot for international human trafficking and smuggling, the transit, and the domestic hub for it? Number one, female human trafficking is disregarded because it is mistaken for prostitution. The problem lies in identifying differences between trafficking in females and prostitution. An IOM survey in the context of Pakistan showed that 62% of the respondents believe that prostitution is voluntary as it is paid and trafficking is forced. Only 19.4% knew the difference between prostitution and trafficking. Now, many of you might be thinking, what is the difference? The difference is a matter of perception. There is no as such formal difference that has been identified, but this is what is generally what is accepted. Prostitution is the readiness, and I say readiness with a heavy dose of sarcasm, readiness to engage based on the claim that these females choose to leave prostitution. And of course, this completely disregards lack of opportunity and the difficulties of leaving the prostitution trade. And sex trafficking is when the choice of leaving is eliminated as they lose their passports, ID cards, and other paperwork. So this is the difference. Now, I'm going to talk about the different routes for human smuggling, because this is how the sex trafficking is also channeled within. The Nokandi route is the most infamous. It primarily runs through Balochistan, bordering Afghanistan and Iran. You have different routes from land, sea, and air. I can see Melinda has told me I have 2 more minutes, so I'll just very briefly go over it. The breakdown of victims is very much women from emerging economies, including Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Sri Lanka. And human traffickers tend to prey on rural women who move to urban areas for better opportunities, a life of dignity, and stronger economic prospects. Sex trafficking is classified into 3 broad categories. You have slavery, human trafficking, and removal of body parts. Now, Sigma Saiba has already covered child jockeys. So I'm going to talk about women and their sexual exploitation. They are mostly, when they're brought through to Pakistan, this form of smuggling turns into trafficking. There are 4 broad categories of prostitutes that they fall under: dancing girls, call girls, students, or nurses. In 2013, 150 women and children from Bangladesh were smuggled on a monthly basis into Pakistan. This is rooted in a pattern that we've seen repeated time and time again. For example, in 1992, Human Rights Watch documented 1,400 Bangladeshi women in Pakistan who were in Pakistan prisons on the basis of violation of immigration laws or under Hudud ordinance. Now, the US State Department also released a report in 2013, which documented the horrifying details about these women, where they come from, what their economic status is, and how they are living in Pakistan in the jails. They mostly come from Iran, Afghanistan, and Bangladesh. Now, I know that Sigma had very correctly identified economic factors, but you see there's another element of it which falls in line with the laws, and I'll go over it very quickly. That is how women are viewed by and large by men. There is no lack of demand for sex from men, and the status of women very much remains an issue. On the part of NGOs, there's not been much work to address either one, such as demystifying sex as an act and how women are to be seen. There have been efforts in literature. I'd like to end my session. If anybody would like to know about the legal aspect of it, I'd be happy to share it, but we're running out of time. Ales Khan did write a book about sex trafficking called No Honor, in which he says, there's a quote that I'm going to end with: "She had lapsed into the world of dreams, most of which had remained unfulfilled." Thank you.
Thank you, Mehr. Listening to you, it seems these experiences cut across borders again.
Yes.
Strangely, our commonalities are tragic, and hopefully those commonalities will expand to something positive and collaborative that can make us better as a region, as a community, as a people.
Although Pakistan passed the Prevention and Control of Human Trafficking Ordinance, PACTO, in 2002, it failed to make a distinction between trafficking and smuggling, especially when the focus is on the external movement of people. It actually took us 16 years to legislate and replace an ordinance on human trafficking. So today, in 2018, we have the Prevention of Trafficking in Persons Act and the Prevention of Smuggling of Migrants Act in 2018. Now, while this separates smuggling from the term trafficking, actual boundaries are still very much blurred, because the PTPA, the Prevention of Trafficking of Persons Act, is when someone uses fraud, force, or intimidation to hire, house, transport, give, or get another human.
Mehr, you've muted by mistake. Mehr, you've got mute. You hit mute.
I'm so sorry.
It was when you said human, something human uske baad.
It was something about human. I think possibly I was just saying that what was I saying? Oh, or get another human, but there is actually no mention of sex. Sex trafficking does not even fall under the Constitution, Article 11. It actually comes down to the Pakistan Penal Code discussion of the internal trafficking. So that excludes aliens or cross-border victims, although Section 371A and 371 we do criminalize the buying and selling of a person for the prostitution. So really, when it comes down to addressing human trafficking in Pakistan, we do have victims from the region, but when they do stand up in shelters, the law is where they have failed. And then because the law fails them, they never actually get around to being, rescued or having access to any form of help or advice, and they remain where they are. So they basically remain as missing people. And I think this is where regionally we need to sort of work together to raise awareness, how countries can work together to say that these are our missing people. Does Pakistan have them? If so, where are they? What has happened to them? Otherwise, we see these cases falling through the cracks in the legislation.
Thank you so much for giving me this chance to ask a question. Has anything been done, especially to Pakistan, I'm asking, because most of these trafficking has, as we heard you, all the speakers, has been happening towards the Arab countries and the Middle East. So is anything to do with this concept in Islam? And has anyone touched upon this religious group of people to advocate against it? This concept that is misunderstood or maybe understood, I don't know, that whoever works with you can be your sex partner. So this concept of kaneez and all that. And I think in the Middle East, this concept is prevalent. Even people, women who work in the offices are abused because they think it's their right to abuse them. And they don't even consider this an abuse. So any work done on that aspect? Or if not, could we think about it? I'm sorry if there's a fatwa against me, I don't know about that, but asking this question has not been easy.
No, I thank you. And this was something that did cross my mind, that this is a very sensitive topic. And I apologize in advance if it's been triggering for anyone who's been listening, anyone who's been watching. The thing with the Middle East and the thing with South Asia is, I think, primarily how women are viewed. They don't have much of a social status. This lies mostly within the patriarchy, the lack of accountability that men get away with when it comes to crimes against women and children. With regards to using religion, I think religion is mostly used as a policing tool when it comes to women in terms of their bodies, in terms of what they're wearing. And so it's interesting because the victims are actually shamed because, again, like I said, they're seen as wanting to be part of this. And that's why there's such a blur between prostitution and sex trafficking. There's very little understanding that women who are trafficked actually don't have the choice to leave. Prostitutes are able to leave, but of course, social structure and doesn't help, and they face a lot of difficulties. So it's a very sort of tangled mess. And to unravel all these threads, it's going to take a concentrated effort, not just by religion, but societal awareness. We have to start a dialogue, I think regionally, not just within Islamic countries, that how women are to be treated. There are efforts that are being done in art, theater, music, literature. Everything is there, but by and large, I think until greater efforts are taking place to change how females are viewed as a gender, I don't see the flow of sex trafficking slowing down or even being addressed, nor will there be a distinction between prostitution and sex trafficking.
Are there any other questions that people need to ask from any of our panelists?
There's a question in the chat that says, is the role of media sufficient against trafficking? Not that I'm trying to answer all the questions here, but very quickly, given my work in the media, I do remember when the story that I did for the Friday Times, it came out in 2007. There was a lot of risk because there was quite I spoke about the role of the state. I spoke about how members of the Federal Investigative Agency are complicit. They make money off it. And so I think if the media was to join hands and we are to sort of start a conversation or raise awareness, this is definitely a starting point. It is not the solution. It is not the end all to what is a massive problem. It's a global problem, but it certainly can unite a region in addressing that we are facing this problem. It's not just ours, it's everyone's problem. And if you're not speaking up about it, you most certainly are complicit in it. You are part of the problem. So I think the media is certainly a starting point.